It's pretty safe to say that being a man is not the same as it used to be even a few decades ago, and the men going their own way movement is very much a product of that idea. The proclaimed goal of the MGTOW movement is to break away from society, and oftentimes more importantly women, in order to focus on themselves through self-improvement and the like. However, what becomes extremely readily apparent as soon as you spend any amount of time on a MGTOW YouTube channel or a forum or a subreddit or a website or anything like that is that in spite of their focus on going their own way, there is an overwhelming and disproportionate amount of focus on women and what they're doing and how women are hurting society and men and so on and so forth, in direct spite of the fact that they are supposed to be stepping away from it all. And whilst I do believe that it is necessary for men to go their own way in terms of their life, their career, their relationships, and pretty much all areas of life, it is important for men to take their own path, the overwhelming focus on the ills of women, I believe, is dragging men away from what the MGTOW group should actually be focused on, and that is self-improvement, making yourself a better person. So in this video, on the one hand, I do want to make the argument that men should be going their own way. But on the other hand, the fact that the MGTOW movement is not cutting it as an avenue of self-improvement for men, and that we should be doing whatever possible to improve our lives individually as men and also improve society on the whole. We should be working on discovering ourselves and our role in this new modern world. So much of what I see when it comes to MGTOW is simply men hating women. This of course isn't to say that that is representative of literally every single person in the MGTOW movement, but the most vocal voices in these forums, in these websites, on these YouTube channels also happen to be the angriest voices, and those voices are angry at women. These loud and vocal voices are not at all focused on men's self-improvement or on working on themselves or helping to uplift other men. Instead, they seem to spend the vast majority of their time gesturing at imagined hypocrisies, imagined slights, and attacks on men and masculinity that usually on the surface of it are not really that much of an existential threat to men to even begin with. There is no focus on self-improvement, which I believe is what is drawing men to the movement. It is what initially started to draw me towards the movement several years ago, was that I just wanted to be better as a man. So let's say that you have just gone through a rough time with a woman. Maybe it was a particularly harsh rejection, or it was a bad breakup, or something similar to that. You decide that it's time to focus on yourself and figuring out who you are as a man outside of your relationships with women. On the surface of it, that is a very noble goal, and you discover the MGTOW community, the men going their own way, a group whose self-proclaimed goal once again is male self-improvement by extracting oneself from society and relationships with women. So you find MGTOW and you think as a man, this is great. I think I've finally found my people. I like that there is this idea of men figuring out who they are when separated from society and relationships that we place so much importance and ego into. You know, I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to discover who I am as a man. And again, this is a pretty noble goal because men shouldn't really be defining themselves based on their relationships with whatever person that they are attracted to. You should be defining yourself for yourself, not against other people or for other people. At this point, you are just looking for answers. You're looking for a sense of community. You certainly don't hate women, and you don't have this visceral disgust for the F word. And by that, of course, I mean feminism. But after you have spent less than 1 hour on a MGTOW forum or YouTube channel or website or subreddit, you will be bombarded with ideas such as feminism has gone too far and it's hurting men more and more every day, or that women are these hypergamous super manipulators who cannot wait for the day that you're stupid enough to marry them so that they can, and I quote, divorce rape you to take half of your stuff and leave you broken and destitute. If you find yourself deep enough down the rabbit hole of the MGTOW movement, you can easily find yourself surrounded by members of the alt-right and even white supremacists, which you, as a logical and rational and decent human being, obviously do not want to find yourselves involved with. After all, you just came here for self-improvement. You weren't coming here to learn about the great replacement theory. So you start to get more involved, and maybe it feels good for a little while to vent about some of the hypocrisies of our modern society. But that in and of itself can quickly spiral into something else. I know as well as anyone how being in these communities and interacting with them can send you almost into this feedback loop of anger as they continuously stoke your frustration and push you into being angrier and angrier every single day. And here's the thing, most of the time, if you're angry, then you're not thinking rationally. And if you're not thinking rationally, then you are not looking at the popular MGTOW talking points and arguments with any kind of critical eye. And if you're not looking at these things critically, then you're likely to go deeper and deeper into this movement without ever really thinking about what it is that you are starting to get yourself involved in. There's a pretty commonly known technique in sales that if you can get somebody to say yes to a small thing, then you can start to kind of chain yeses together until you finally get to the big ask and you make the sale. Certain movements and indeed cults are exactly the same way. And in many ways, MGTOW does this as well. So let's take an example. You went through a rough relationship where your girlfriend was verbally and physically abusive to you. People in the MGTOW movement tell you that that sucks, but you're not alone, that it happened to this guy and this guy and this guy, and that's terrible, right? Yeah, that's pretty awful, you say. In fact, the way that the statistics are reported are pretty flawed and men are hugely underrepresented in those misleading statistics. Isn't that awful? Yeah, you say once again. And if it can happen to you, then it could happen to anyone, right? Yeah. And no one believed you, right? Yeah. And the so-called feminists who are all about ending domestic abuse, they didn't even seem to care, right? Yeah. They're such hypocrites, right? Yeah. In fact, they're the ones who are making women feel like they can take out their anger and turn on us with physical abuse. Feminism is what's to blame here. Feminism and women. And so what starts out as a pretty reasonable statement of empathy quickly chains together a lot of yeses and starts to lead you down a ladder to more and more extreme beliefs. At the start of that, you just wanted somebody to empathize with you, and at the end of that, you're agreeing that because one woman was domestically abusive towards you, that feminism and all women are to blame. They are stoking your anger and stopping you from thinking critically. You're starting to forget why it is that you came to this community in the first place, for support and for self-improvement. And sure, you found a community, but there's not all that much support after the initial empathetic drawing you in. And there's certainly not a whole lot of self-improvement. It's a perpetual stream of gasoline onto a fire that you were hoping to extinguish. Suddenly it's not about you. It's about all women, and it's about all men, and it's about all feminists who are trying to destroy our society. It's no longer about you getting better. It's about destroying the enemy. This is a war now. The traditional sign for MGTOW is an arrow that branches off from a main arrow. Based on how this community actually works, I believe that a more appropriate sign would be a main arrow with another arrow cropping out of the side of it that loops back upon itself. It pushes you into this loop of stoking your anger and frustration and leading that back around to an illogical conclusion that all women and all feminists are to blame for this. And again, all you wanted was to come to this community to learn more about yourself and who you are outside of society and relationships. And that is how the MGTOW community draws you in. It twists your noble intentions of wanting to be better as a man and starts you down a path to more and more extreme beliefs. I know because I was there. I just wanted to figure out who I was as a person because I'd been through a really bad breakup and I was really struggling with life on the whole. And this was what I found. So that's going to be the end of the first part of this video. In tomorrow's video, we're going to be talking about how MGTOW really should work and what we should be doing to reform the community and to make it for the betterment of men instead of this constant opposition against women that is getting us absolutely nowhere. So thank you very much for watching. If you got this far, I hope that you will leave a like on the video because it really helps to support the channel. And really, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in part 2 tomorrow.